welcome back to the 12th Man podcast. A very happy Good Friday to all our watchers and listeners. And if you're watching this on playback, it's just gone 12 noon here. And we are going to be looking back at an incredible night in the Europa League, particularly at Old Trafford. Dramatic ending for Manchester United. We'll be looking at Spurs progressing as well, what it means for both teams. We will look back as well at the Champions League, where Villa came very close to a great comeback. Arsenal held their nerve and went even one better, winning at the Bernabeu. They set up a tie with PSG. Of course, Barcelona will meet Inter Milan in the other semi-final. We're going to look deeper at those as well. Before we look at the Premier League fixtures this weekend, it's also a very significant day in the AFL. Fixtures kicking off now at 12:30. Derby in bottom position, take on Luton in third bottom. A huge game at 12:30. Of course, lots of games at 3 o'clock. And there is also games on Easter Monday, so it's a double round. It'll be the fourth last and the third last games of the AFL. So much they play for. I seen it on today in the Championship. Every team is still playing for something, so it is one of the most competitive leagues. And of course, there's a double match round in the Irish Premier Division as well. Derry travel to Galway tonight and face Sligo on Tuesday at home. So significant games for Derry City. It'll be 11 games played come Tuesday night. So almost a third of the way through the season. So much to discuss in the next hour or so, Owen. But first of all, how are you? And happy Good Friday.
Same to you. I'm good. It could be the weekend. It could be, well, if results go the way I want them to go this weekend, it could be all wrapped up and finished. But I could be celebrating myself come Sunday afternoon. But all's good. I would have enjoyed it a bit better if United hadn't came back last night. I was getting the post ready and all, but unfortunately, unfortunately, I had to backtrack on them. But no,
I see a few people watching here on the top left screen. So if you feel like you might have a comment, stick on and we will discuss. Sorry, I won't go ahead.
No, all's good, and I'm sure you're pretty happy, especially now you know Spurs will probably face the easiest semi-final.
Well, it's been a pretty miserable 2025 for Spurs and Man United fans, but I think it peaked last night. The question is, will it peak even further? And that's what we'll discuss. Let's focus. Usually we would start talking about the Champions League, but we are going to start with the Europa League. We being last night, and we have to start at Old Trafford because that was pretty incredible what happened. United looked down and out, 4-2, and you think there's no way back. Even though Lyon had 10 men, they looked comfortable. They were the better team up until that point with 10 men. A very soft penalty, in my opinion, changed the tie. And Lyon kind of buckled under the pressure. Credit to Man United, they kept going, but the penalty was a game changer, wasn't it?
As soon as they scored that penalty, I said they're as soon as that penalty went down, I was like they're coming back here. I didn't think they would win it. I thought it would go to penalties, but fair play to them. As much as I have made Liverpool tinted glasses on, I always want them to lose. You have to give credit where credit's due. It's a big comeback, but especially for a player like Harry Maguire who's maligned a lot and ridiculed a lot, but
some big goals for you over the years.
All these that game last night sort of gave me flashbacks to the FA Cup game last season when they knocked us out. That sort of gave me memories.
I mention that over the last few seasons, maybe not so much the League Cup one campaign, but definitely the FA Cup one last year, and this Europa League journey now. It does seem that they rescue themselves at the last possible opportunity. I mean, Liverpool, they were 3-2 down, scored 2 late goals. Coventry blow a 3-0 lead. Then a goal that's marginally chalked off for one of the greatest comebacks from a championship team in the FA Cup. They only won that in penalties. Of course, they were very good against Man City in the final. They deserved that one, but arguably they were very fortunate to get there. And let's be honest, over the 2 games, did they do enough? They beat Lyon. I mean, they were battered with 10 men last night, but again, they have found a way through, and it is starting to look like maybe again the name might be on the trophy for United this year.
I said that to you before we came on. It's one of them. You sort of one thing I will say before, not even about the game. Them commentators last night were a disgrace.
Obviously,
get.
I was watching the Spurs game, but I did tune in for extra time then, of course, because the Spurs game was over. So I can't on the 90 sort of minutes before that. I did see a lot of people saying Rio Ferdinand needs to come off the mic and stuff. But what I would say, as I mean, if he wasn't celebrating, I mean, he wouldn't be being honest. I mean, we've seen Carragher do it, we've seen Neville do it.
I don't like when.
I remember the OG Spurs Liverpool, the year Liverpool finished second to Man City. That put them back, I think, to the top of the league with the OG from Lloris, and it was Mo Salah, little dancer, and Chiara kind of got carried away. But we've seen Ali McCoy get carried away with Rangers. I don't really have a particular problem with it, because if they're going to be put on these games, then it's obvious that the broadcaster wants this, because it used to be that you couldn't comment it on your own club that you were affiliated with, but that seems to have gone in recent seasons. So I think this is what some broadcasters want. Maybe not so much rival fans, but what was your opinion on Ferdinand last night?
No, it's not. It's not even the fact that it's not even the fact what it was. I just think he's a bad commentator. I don't enjoy listening to him. Like even Gary Neville, as much as I don't like him really, but he talks sense sometimes. And Robbie Savage as well. I would rather listen to Pintry and that boy who was commenting on the Spurs game. Who was it, Sam? Oh my God, he is. Oh, I don't know where they get these boys from. Like, I love, what do you call the boy on BT Sport? Darren Fletcher, is it? I think he's good. I think Ali McCoy is good. I don't particularly like Carragher as a commentator, so it's not a lovable thing. I just think some of them are awful commentators.
Let's dive deeper on the last night, of course, for both these teams, United and Spurs. There was a lot of background noise coming into us. I mean, we discussed it on Monday, Owen. Roy Keane says, forget about Thursday. Does losing here mean anything to anyone today? And let's be honest, it looked like it was United's season was going to go up in flames a few minutes to go, but they've rescued it. Spurs went down to this Frankfurt second leg as second favourites. A lot of people expected Frankfurt at home to overcome Spurs, and Spurs found a way to win, protect in a style that we haven't seen that often this year, where it was kind of dogged, resilient, and they held out that sort of Frankfurt storm at the end. Although they didn't create an awful lot of chances, it was non-stop pressure for the kind of the sort of final 10 or 15 minutes of that, and Spurs got the job done. So, I mean, what does it mean for both managers? Because we've seen, very, very passionate reactions from both of them last night, of course, in very different circumstances. I think it was relief for Ange that they held out, and possibly pandemonium the way United got through in the end for Amorim. So, I mean, it keeps them on. It keeps the sort of season going. But I mean, it's hard work for both of them.
It's not for you Spurs fans and United fans. I wouldn't say it's good for the blood pressure. Like, I wouldn't say it's good for their heart rate. But no, I don't think it changes too much. I think even if Spurs do win the Europa League, I think they need to make a change of manager. I don't know if you've changed your opinion, but for me, I think it's run its course no matter what happens. And with Amorim, they're not going to sack him. Like, so regardless of what happens, he's still going to be there in the summer. But I think, as I say, regardless of what happens, both teams, because you can't, as much as the Europa League, their season rests on this Europa League, you can't look past the league campaign either. It's been shocking for both. Like, I mean, the league's your bread and butter. Like.
Yeah, I mean, like, the reactions of the Spurs players at the end with Ange Postecoglou did suggest that they are still playing for him in some sort of way, because there was a lot of embraces at the end. It wasn't like a team that were just kind of happy to get through. There was a massive relief of pressure. There was a lot of hugging, a lot of fuss pumping from the players and the manager together. So it kind of reiterates back to where I kind of feel we are with Ange as a club. I think that it's very different to Mourinho and Jose, or Mourinho and Conte, where I think they clearly down tools and they didn't like him as people towards the end. Whereas I think with Ange, it's more a tactical issue, and there's a lack of belief in his tactics and how they play. Because if you think about it last night, I'm not sure whether Ange went about it this way or the players kind of took the responsibility themselves, but there was less playing out of the back. There was more long ball and kind of trying to win it in areas where they were away from their own goal. I think Van de Ven made a huge difference. He was excellent. He made a goal save and tackle in the first half. But
Vicario made a
it
big save
definitely
as well.
didn't feel like an Ange team performance. It kind of felt like just almost like a throwback to a Jose or Conte, where they kind of just were happy to sit back towards the end and see it out. And of course, I was nervous, but bar the odd moment, I think we were comfortable.
I was one of them where he couldn't go gung ho because if he did, they would have just picked these off. Because I haven't watched a lot of Frankfurt. I've seen a few of their games in the Bundesliga, but they they're a very quick team. Like they can hit you in the counter attack if you give them that chance. So I think he sort of just adapted, which ironically is one of the things that gets thrown at Ange a lot of the time that he doesn't adapt. But it's uh it's all about winning the competition for Spurs now. Like no one Spurs. No, I know they're playing Bono Glint, but if they go out to them, like, does anyone care about the Frankfurt game? Nope. So and they have to treat it. They have to, even though it's 99%, I would say Spurs are getting through. You have to treat it as if you're playing a top team, because if you take your eye off the ball in Europe, you're out. No matter who you're playing, as we've seen with PSG, they are right. Like a couple of goals from Villa, the momentum can just shift. So, and I think United definitely have a tougher task to get to the final. But what I will say is, Spurs.
You get
If
the
Spurs
feeling that that's how the fans feel. That United fans have woke up today, obviously very happy, but they're looking at Bilbao and thinking this is going to be difficult. Whereas the Spurs fans shouldn't do this, but it's hard not to. I think a lot of the Spurs fans are already thinking about the final because, I mean, this is a dream draw. Let's be honest. If somebody had says before a ball was kicked this season, you're going to play Bodo Glimt over 2 legs to get to the final, I mean, anyone would have taken that opportunity. Now, we can't disrespect Bodo Glimt, but they are the first Norwegian team to ever get this far in the European Europa League. So it suggests that they're out of their depth at this level. These Norwegian teams, of course, they might be an anomaly, but this is a fantastic opportunity for Spurs to get the European final.
It is, but what I will say is, last time Spurs played in a final in Spain, it didn't go too well. But just thought I would get that in there. But no, different. I think, to be honest, and this is me, I'm not trying to be. I think Bilbao won the whole competition. I generally do. Like, I think they're now I think any 4 of these teams, bar Bodo Glimt, can. I would say the 3 of them can win the competition. But
if it was a United and Spurs final, do you think it's a town cost, really?
That is well, we've seen the games that they've. I'd have my Spurs top on, and I'd be borrowing a Spurs top off you.
But I was reading today actually that whilst it is a very nice city, there is major concerns that if United and Spurs were to both make the final, how they would hospitality people on it, because there wouldn't be enough. Because you'd have you'd have a lot of United fans traveling, a lot of Spurs fans traveling. I'm going to leave myself open here on this podcast. I did book my flights and my accommodation for Bilbao because, one, the prices this morning are actually through the roof. I booked them last night, and it's about double the price now.
Are you going? Are you going to the actual match?
Well, that remains to be seen. We'll have to see what we can do, but I'll be there anyway. But I mean, it would be a concern, wouldn't it? That United and Spurs fans could end up clashing out there in Spain because it might be a crowded area.
Well, there's not really. You'd be more concerned if it was like Liverpool and United, because Spurs and United aren't really. There's no hostility there that I know of. I don't know if you know of anything, but like, I don't think they're too much of a rivalry there. But you see it with fans when they get over to these countries and if they get a few beers on them, anything can happen.
I know that there was a lot of good behaviour when Spurs met Liverpool in the final, but it was in a major city in Madrid, so it was a bigger area. The issue in Bilbao apparently is that it could be a very, very tight struggle to do this. But look, I think, I'll be honest with you, and I think there's every opportunity these two can meet in the final now, because whilst Bilbao are going to be at home in the final, they still have to overcome United over 2 games. And we seen United last night. They do tend to find ways, even when they maybe don't deserve to get through. And let's be honest, Bilbao, although it was quite one-sided game, or one-sided tie in terms of the stats, they did struggle to break down Rangers. I mean, only for that penalty right on the stroke of half-time. They had to win 3 halves against a Scottish team without scoring a goal. So whilst they are a talented team, they aren't unbeatable for Man United.
No, I wouldn't. I still think they'll win it because I don't know. I just have this thing where United's luck will run out eventually. But as we say, it could be one of them as well where their their names on the trophy. But if it is a Spurs United final, I'll be saying coys, coys, coys all the way.
Do you think Spurs United would be a better final because of the jeopardy involved? One team is going to get rescued and the other team is going to, be down in the dumps, really.
It'll be an interesting one because if Spurs won it, then it's their first trophy in 16, 17 years. And if United won it, then because apparently if United don't want it, they're bit like financially. So it's
I think that's the same scenario for Spurs. The budget will be very limited. I mean, let's dive into the league form because I've been listening to Talk Sport all morning, and there has been different views from different fans. Of course, the pundits that are on there. You've mentioned that the league's your bread and butter, but of course they'll be disappointed with their league form. But if Spurs do win this Europa League, more so for Spurs, I would say, first trophy for 17 years, first European trophy since 1984. Will anyone remember the league season? In 2 or 3 years' time, or will they just remember winning the Europa League?
I'd say the Europa League, like you seen Amorim last night. He basically said we're going to play the children for the rest of the season in the league. So it'll be interesting to see if Ange goes down that road. But he's not that. I don't think he's that type of manager. I think he'll just go out to win every game. But
Hickey has to wrap Mickey Van de Ven and Cotton Wool. Really, I don't think he can afford to play him in the Premier League because he is key.
No, but I think, as much as I think the league's your bread and butter, and it is, if one of these teams won the Europa League, then that's their season like saved, doesn't it? So we won't be talking about like this time next year. We won't be talking about Spurs finished 16th or United finished 17th, but they won the Europa League. It'll be
that's it. I mean, if I'm in Bilbao and Spurs have won that trophy, of course you will remember the league season in terms of it was a poor season. But I think the pandemonium of winning this trophy will take away that pain.
Would you?
Yes, it would be embarrassing. They finished so low in the league. Would we be happy with the league form? Definitely not. But just to get over the line, and it is a major trophy. We're not talking about people would slag off the League Cup, which I don't agree with. But this is a competition that's hard to win. It's been proven that the teams that fancy they want it don't sometimes go and they want it. I mean, Liverpool were huge favourites last year and didn't. And we've seen other situations where our teams have been in it that were favoured to win it, didn't.
Frankfurt won it a few years ago, didn't they?
Yeah, so this would definitely put Spurs back on the map a wee bit.
Would you care as much if Arsenal won the Champions League if you won a trophy?
I think we have to distance ourselves from that. You know what I mean? I think both teams will be equally as happy. Yes, the Arsenal fans saying, "Well, you've won the Mickey," but I mean, Arsenal have been on lots of times in the last 10 years and haven't won, so they can't really have that argument. But there's. I'm not going to say. I mean, this is a poor competition. There's no doubt about it. We have seen stronger renewals of the Europa League, but I think the draw for Spurs has been extremely kind. AZ Alkmaar, Frankfurt, Bodo Glimt. And if it was United in the final, I don't think they would get a better opportunity to win a European trophy.
Would you be more concerned if it was Bilbao in the final?
I think it would be tougher. No doubt about it, just because it's their stadium, and they will have overcome and likely United fans will go into it confident if they play Spurs because United will have had a lot of tougher run. You think about Sociedad are a lot better than AZ Alkmaar. Lyon looked a better team than Frankfurt. Bilbao are a much better team than Bodo Glimt. So United will feel that they deserve to be there and that they can beat anyone in that final. So I think it's going to be fascinating. But before we move on, who do you think is the more likely winner of United and Spurs? Now I know you says Bilbao, you think will win it. Who do you think's more likely out of those two?
Well, if I'm saying Bilbao, what I'll have to say for Spurs because I'm thinking United will get put out, but just say they both get into the final. It's a 50-50, isn't it? Because they're both very poor teams. But on their day they can surprise you. I'm gonna go Spurs just because I couldn't bear Liverpool and United won the trophy in the same season.
Deserve some football enjoy after a lifetime of failure. We're not there yet. But I have to be honest, I can't see any way we don't make this final now. I just think over 2 games, we've got it. And I think it's significant we're home. I think it's significant we're home first, because if we can get a 2 or 3-0 lead, of course it's not an easy place to go, but I think that would make it very difficult for them to turn that around. If Bodo Glimt come and hold Spurs, it's a very different second leg. But I just think we've got to be a lot stronger than this team.
Would it change your opinion on the manager? But would you still change if you do one?
No, I think it will be a nice ending, but it would be time to shake hands and say we need to go a different direction. I do think that'll be the way it goes, unless they were to batter Atletico Madrid or United in the final, and it could be seen as a sliding doors moment for Ange. But I kind of feel if we're going to win it, it's going to be hard work. I kind of feel that we'll beat Bodo. It'll be harder than people think. I think we'll get past Bodo by a goal or 2. I don't think it'll be a complete whitewash. And then I think the final will be like, if we won it, it'll be by 1 goal or extra time or penalties or anything.
It sort of reminds me of the 2019 season a wee bit. Spurs and Arsenal getting the European finals in the same season. If they do, I hope.
The Spurs in the league that year had a really poor second half of the season, although this is another level. But it is funny how these things tend to work out, that teams can, we've seen Chelsea do it, Liverpool do it with the Champions League a number of years ago, and Milan, where they didn't qualify for the top 4 via the league, where teams do perform better in a cup competition. So I mean, this is kind of evidence that it wouldn't be a big shock if United or Spurs won it, because we have seen Chelsea and Liverpool do it, albeit not in this position this far in the league, but well below where they would have expected to finish in the league.
It's gonna be interesting anyway. But I would be very confident if I was you that you'll be getting to the final. But as I said to you last night, I don't trust Spurs at all. So
I mean, I've booked now, so I'm just hoping that we at least make the final. And of course, if we do get there, then I will focus on winning it. But for now, I just want to be going to Bilbao Wales in the final. I won't even want to get on that plane if Bodo Glimt put us out.
It would be. I would just be topical, but wouldn't
to be honest, though, it's not over. It's not me being arrogant or over. It just made financial sense to get it done, because the prices this morning are through the roof.
It's no, but I agree with you. I don't think it'll be a 4-5-0 job. I think it'll be very tight, because they'll make it tight.
Right, Owen, let's talk through those Champions League ties. And they were dramatic games as well in there, but I think just last night kind of overshadowed it. That's why we spoke about the Europa League first. Normally we would speak about the Champions League first, but Arsenal, Owen, we've seen what happened on Tuesday night with PSG and Villa, and we'll come on to talk about that. But and Dortmund gave Barcelona a bit of a money scare, so there was that kind of feeling that we've seen this in the Champions League before. 3-0 leads can sometimes mean very little, but credit to Arsenal. They were resilient, they were well organised, and they showed quality to score their goals. And let's be honest, over the 2 games, the 5-1 didn't flatter Arsenal. It was a convincing display over the 2 games.
It was, and even on Wednesday night, Madrid didn't look like they were going to score. I know they did score, but that was from Saliba's mistake. But I don't think, and it confused me. They were crossing the ball a while lot, and when you look at Arsenal's. And Madrid don't have that type of player that can challenge in there. If you look at Arsenal centre backs, Kivior, Saliba, even their fullbacks are like Timber's good in the air. Smiles Lewis Skelly too. He's a very, very good footballer. But for me, I just think Madrid got found out, and they got. And what impressed me about Arsenal is the physicality side of it. I think they bullied Madrid a bit, and Madrid couldn't cope it.
Yeah. And Championships just kicked off. Derby against Luton, of course. Anyone that's maybe just a Premier League fan, I'm telling you, tune into the football today. It'll be very interesting what happens in the Championship. There's games on from all day, from now 12:30 to 10 o'clock tonight. Oxford versus Leeds tonight is the 8 o'clock game. That will be interesting. Leeds, of course, closing in on a return to the Premier League.
Yeah.
But Owen, I agree. I agree with you. I thought Arsenal looked better organised. They were better with the ball. They looked fitter.
Yeah.
And Madrid in that second half, I thought were flagging really. Bellingham for me. I know you were a big fan of him, and I kind of said to me, it reminds me so much of a Dele Alli type of character, where it wouldn't surprise me if this career has been down the drain completely. Now, he's done it in a bigger stage, but Dele Alli kind of burst onto the scene as well, and it went south for him. I look at Bellingham, Owen, and I don't know what his best position is. He can't play he can't really play as a 6 or an 8, and then as a 10. He's not that kind of sulky that's going to dribble past players. He's very much like a Frank Lampard player where he's all about getting goals. And last night Wednesday night, his fitness looked well off it. He threw his toys out of the pram a few times.
That's
He just doesn't strike me as a good character.
No, that's the type of thing that I was going to come on to. His attitude doesn't seem great. Yeah. Excuse me. He always seems to be giving it. Now I'm on the talk, but he's a professional footballer. He always seems to be giving the referees dogs abuse. Like I know I do, but I'm doing it. But I'm doing it from the comfort of my chair. I wouldn't do it if I was on the pitch. But he seems like a cocky boy. It reminds me about a. It reminds me, not to the same extent, but it reminds me of Trent in a way. No, I'm not saying Trent.
I was going to come on to that because before we speak about Arsenal, as are Madrid going down a dangerous road here of bringing in too many superstar players because Vinicius, Mbappe, Bellingham. I'll leave Rodrigo out because I actually think he works hard, but the three of them don't put in a lot of defensive effort.
It reminds me of PSG.
Trent Trent is known to be, maybe not as I think he gets scapegoated for his defensive ability. He is better than what some people say, but I do think that's the weakest part of his game. And he's very much a type of player that's sure of himself, very confident, very arrogant at times. And as you point out, PSG had this problem where they had too many superstars. It looked to me on Wednesday night like a team of individuals, more so than a team. And they kind of ran out of this in the end. And I think if you look at that PSG team now, they're much more of a team than this Real Madrid team are.
Oh, I was just going to say that. Like, look, I'm not saying PSG don't have very talented players. They do. Kvaratskhelia is a great player. Dembele seemed to find his best form there. Their midfield is probably, for me, the best midfield in Europe, or maybe beside Arsenal's. But I agree with you. Real Madrid are just going down this route of, oh, you're a superstar, we'll sign you. But as we've seen with PSG, now Real Madrid have the European pedigree to prove it. PSG don't. But as we've seen with PSG, it doesn't always work like that. And Mbappe, to me, yes, he scored, 30-odd goals this season, but he doesn't look happy.
Yeah. I mean, I've watched Real Madrid a fair few times this year in the Champions League. I thought it was a very similar performance at Anfield. They never really looked like scoring at Anfield. They were well beaten on the night, beaten by Arsenal badly over 2 games, scraped through the Atletico tie when Atletico really should have got through. Atalanta, they were lucky to win out there. I thought Atalanta were the better team. So there is evidence they say that this may not be the best route to go down, in terms of all these so-called superstars coming in, because it doesn't look like they're going to win the La Liga. It doesn't look, well, they're out of the Champions League, and I think they're second favourites in the Copa del Rey final against Barcelona, and Barcelona have been beating them and beat them a couple of times badly over the last couple of seasons.
Yep, and we're hearing that Ancelotti will leave after that as well. So, and I've heard a few rumours about them wanting Klopp. I don't know. If
he said to me the other night, he says to me, it wouldn't surprise me if Klopp come on because Klopp will make sure there's hard work. They'll be a better team on the eye, I think. I think for how many good players they have, or so-called great players, style of play is brutal. It's hard to watch.
I think if Klopp does come on, Trent will love it anyway. Because
well, there was talk that Klopp could possibly be the next Barcelona manager, but the way Barcelona are playing, that job's not going to be available for a time yet. So, do you think Klopp would be tempted with a Real Madrid offer?
I mean, who wouldn't be? It's Real Madrid at the end of the day. They're the biggest club in the world. As much as I don't like the way they go about things at certain times, but they have that allure about them. They have that pull about them that no matter who you are, your head will get turned. As we've seen with Trent, And I was, as you'll know, that summer when Bellingham was about to move, I was convinced he was coming to us. But when Real Madrid come calling, it seems to be hard to turn them down.
Yeah, let's focus on Arsenal, Owen. Do you think it was a significant night for Arsenal? Not just overcoming Madrid, but winning the both ties, winning at the Bernabeu, overcoming what they couldn't last year in the Champions League, which was going to Bayern Munich and getting beat in the quarterfinal stage. A lot of Arsenal fans are saying that whilst they haven't done well in the league as they'd hoped, this has been progression because of the Champions League campaign, that they still believe they're going in the right direction. They've had a lot of injuries that our teams have really struggled to cope with. It looks like Arsenal will still finish second in the league, although Newcastle are putting up a pretty good fight for that second spot. Would it still be progression this season if Arsenal were to go out to PSG or losing the final? Would it still be another step closer towards the project they speak about? Or do you think that it will be a very, very backward step if they end win nothing?
It's only, for me, progression's only progression when you win something. Like that's yes, they may get their semi final, or sorry, they are they may get their final, but what's the point being in the final if you don't want it? Like that's yes, you say, oh, we got the final, but you got a silver medal there. But for me, fair play to them for beating Real Madrid. Like I don't think, well, I didn't give them a chance. Not that I give them a chance. I just favourite Madrid because of the history Madrid have, and I think me being a Liverpool fan too, just all that time of playing them and knowing what they're like. But it's as we just spoke about there, it's not the same. It's not the same Real Madrid team as last year. And to be fair now, it's not the same PSG team as old. I know they kind of crumbled on Tuesday night, but I think that was just Villa had the momentum and they took the momentum forward. But I do think PSG will be a tougher game than Madrid.
How much belief and confidence do you think it'll take from, because arguably the Bernabeu is as hard as anywhere to go in the world.
Yeah.
You throw Anfield in there maybe as well, but in terms of the European stage, I think Bernabeu is probably tough as it gets. They've won there. They won't probably fear going to France, and I definitely don't think they'll fear the final either. So will that be the shot in the arm they need? It's going to take a really top team to beat Arsenal now, do you feel?
It could be, yeah, but I've said as soon as Liverpool went out, I thought we'll speak about them, but I just have this feeling for Barcelona. They won the whole thing.
Let's focus on PSG as Arsenal's opponent. I mean, we know what PSG can do. We'll speak about the match the other night shortly. But do you think Arsenal are the best equipped team to deal with PSG? Because, Arsenal are very solid defensively. We've seen their fullbacks in 1v1s they only against Vinicius, Rodrigo, and Mbappe, and they won nearly every battle. PSG have got very good attacking players. But I think Timber and Luis Skelly will back themselves on those individual battles, and Saliba will back himself against Dembele.
He will lie, but I just think PSG are different than Madrid, though. It seems their forwards track back. They don't give you a moment on the ball if they're hounding you all the time. And I think it's not even them 1v1 battles. I think in this game the midfield's gonna be the midfield battle's gonna be the one that wins it, because you'll have Rice, you'll have Neves.
Partey suspended for the first leg too at the Emirates.
Well, to be fair, he should be in jail, but that's for different reasons. No, don't get me started. So who'll play there? Jorginho, do you reckon?
Possibly Jorginho. I do agree with you. I think they'll have to work a lot harder defensively than what they had against Real Madrid. But honestly, I think all the semi-finals, all four of them could win this competition. I think it's going to be two fascinating ties. A lot of Arsenal fans are telling me that they're finally getting there. They're closing in on silverware. Do you see it as a matter of time, as opposed to if it will happen under Arteta? Do you see that even if they didn't go on to win the Champions League this year, do you see it as more likely than unlikely that they do win trophies under Arteta? Or do you think, eventually if they don't win, this is going to all fall apart? I mean, how do you see it at the moment?
No, they will win something eventually. Like, for me, if they get their summer right, I think they have to be considered favourites to win the league next year.
There has been a goal in the early kickoff in the championship Luton Town lead at Derby. So Derby were bottom of the league before kickoff. Luton
I
were
would
third
be.
from bottom. Both these teams are in the bottom three. The Luton away end has just absolutely erupted here as the fans celebrate with the players. That would probably mean that Derby would be in big trouble if they were to lose this game now. But massive
I
for
would.
Luton, of course, trying to
I would.
avoid back-to-back relegations.
That would be bad for Luton. They go back. No, but I think they will win something eventually. And as I say, I think for me, they're not. If they're not the favorites, they're definitely one of the favorites to win the league next season if they get their summer business. But Man City will be back. I would say Liverpool won't go anywhere. Spurs won't be as bad. You would think. So, but I think this for now, their focus should be on winning the Champions League. Obviously, I hope they don't because their fans are. Uh, how can I put this nicely? Unbearable. Um, and I would say if they do win the Champions League, Stefan will be on this podcast. Yeah, I
He's very quiet at the moment. He knows not to shoot too early, so I think he's
but
learned
to
from
be fair,
past
to be
mistakes.
fair, I think the last time he was on here, didn't he say PSG would win the Champions League?
Yeah, so they're going to have to overcome that.
So
Let's look back at that Villa PSG game because PSG got two early goals, 5-1 up. You think Villa could be in danger here of getting badly beaten, but they staged a dramatic second half comeback. And I have to say, at this point, PSG were on the ropes.
yeah,
They really seemed to struggle, PSG, with the physicality and the directness of Villa's play. Do you think is that something that Arsenal will target? Arsenal might be happy to go a wee bit longer. Set pieces looked a major issue for them at times, PSG. They're not the biggest team in the world. And these tight semi-finals, these things can make a difference. I kind of feel that PSG are going to have to really destroy Arsenal. I think if it gets really down to nitty-gritty tight game, you think Arsenal might I think Arsenal might do them.
it's one. It's one. It's, as you say, like the four teams. I think. Do you know what would be an interesting final? Because they're kind of similar. Inter Milan and Arsenal, because they're both very good defensively. So
A game of cat and mouse. And then I think
uh,
PSG Barcelona will be well suited as well.
or even PSG Barcelona would be a fun final. To be honest, they're not the most physical team, but they bullied our midfield when we played them. But then again, we don't have the most physical midfields, so it'll be interesting how they. But then Arsenal for the first leg are losing that bit of physicality. Wait,
Yeah,
Party
party.
suspended. Party suspended. So and Jorginho's not the most physical of players. So as you say, it's going to be very interesting. I think the game changed for me, the volley game, when he took off Rashford. I don't know
Kick
what
off
I don't
mistake.
I don't know what he was thinking there. Uh, I think when Rashford was on, they couldn't cope with his directness, with his play. And that's what annoys me about Rashford because he's such a talented player, but it's mentally he doesn't have it. He just switches on and off. And I've seen there's a few United fans going, "Oh, I'll take him back in the summer." I was like, "Yes, but we'll go down this route again. Oh, he'll be back. He'll score a few goals, and then he'll go back to the Rashford of what he's been for the last 18 months or so."
Yeah. Interesting, definitely. Owen, I mean, a word on Villa because it was a great effort, a great
No,
comeback. Don't take so much from this Champions League campaign. Beating Bayern Munich, they were top of the campaign, the league after 4 or 5 games. Um, the PSG fight back, and all attention now on trying to get into that top five. For Champions League next season. Of course, they do have an FA Cup semi-final too. They look forward to against Palace. Are you surprised at how well Villa have managed their season? At one point it looked like they were really struggling, but they've kicked on the second half of the season. No shame in going out to PSG by one goal over the 2 games. And their league form in the last couple of months has been quite good. So, and they've got that semi-final in the FA Cup to look forward to. So, where Newcastle really struggled a few years ago, Villa have definitely coped a lot better.
there's a difference. Of Villa went out and made signings in the January,
Yeah,
which I think if they didn't bring in Rashford, Malin, and Asensio, I think they would have struggled. But that seems to give them a shot in the arm, and it'll be a very, very interesting game on Saturday between Newcastle and Villa because I would say
I think
Newcastle.
that's what they're brilliant watching.
No, I'm definitely going to watch it because Let's just say I'll be not sleeping on Saturday because I'm an Egypt and sitting up to watch WrestleMania. So yeah, I'm yeah.
WrestleMania. Oh, is that
Saturday,
Saturday night?
Saturday and Sunday.
That's right.
Oh,
It's 2 parts now. What's
uh,
the headliners? What's the big fights? I can't even
well,
call them fights. What's the Polo fights gonna be? Who's headlining them?
John Cena's in one of them. That's what I know. But my Twitter follower, but
That's right. Cena
no,
follows this. There's no John Cena actually follows this man. So
I was actually reading something about that. Apparently, he just does that just randomly to random people. But no, I think it'll be a very interesting game. Who's home for that?
Villa's at home, and of course John Cena will be very happy after last night. Of course, Spurs fan as well.
First one,
Maybe he will make an appearance at the
you
final in
never
Galway.
know.
Maybe I'll get chat to him. Maybe I'll ask him about you and say, "Do you know what, fella? You follow on Twitter." Owen,
It,
one person that must be cursing his luck continually is Harry Kane. I mean, he's had another great season
yeah,
individually.
and
He's done his
I just looked there, and they're not guaranteed to win the Bundesliga either.
they have to get over the line now. Dyer's an our boy who obviously not the same pedigree as Kane, but
How did he end up at
he's
Bayern
made an
Munich?
impact. He's made an impact last night, and he's an our player that's struggling to win anything. I mean, what more can Harry Kane do? I know he missed a couple of chances in the home leg, but he did score to put them in front, or
Yeah.
level in the tie, but in front on the night in a quarter final. He's breaking records for Bayern Munich. He's scoring at a rate that Lewandowski is even struggling to cope with when he was there. You know, Is he just a very unlucky player, or is there more to it?
It's hard to say. Well, at Spurs, it was cursed. At Bayern,
Like everybody as much as the Spurs are is cursed.
I think at Bayern, everyone thought it was a tap in that he was going to win the Bundesliga, and
If they don't
and
win the Bundesliga, do you think he'll be on the move in the summer?
they were able to where's he go now? Real Madrid, Barcelona, like Liverpool, where's he go? Does he go back to the Prem and try and win that? He may as well retire.
Yeah, that's
But I
incredible.
think
But
it's mad to say, but his best hope of a trophy could be the World Cup if he doesn't win anything this year.
yeah, what's it? Well, this like 5 points ahead in Germany.
5 points
Six,
ahead.
with 5-6 games to go.
But their form hasn't been
Who
the
is
best.
just in Dortmund?
Leverkusen.
Leverkusen, that's right there. That's going to be fascinating to see how that
They
works up.
they
Owen,
they drew with Dortmund last week, I think.
yeah, just a word on the other two teams in the semi-final. Inter Milan. Do you think at the moment they're considered as outsiders?
But they
No,
got
not
the
massively, not a big shock, not shocked like Bodo Glimt, but do you think they're the least fancied of the four teams?
but if they did get past Barca, like they'd be a tough team to play in the final because I think they're top of Serie A. I've watched them a few times this season. As much as they're good defensively, they can score goals too, and they have a few talented players there like Barella, like Chananoglu. Like I've watched them
Martinez.
Martinez as well, who every time I watch him for Argentina, he doesn't know how to kick a ball, but for Inter
Richard
Milan,
Dunn says Richard Dunn says on Virgin Media the other night that he thinks Bastoni is the best defender in Europe at the moment. What's your thoughts on him?
he has a top defender. Like because the Serie A is on TNT, I do watch a fair
They
bit of
don't
it.
concede many goals to Inter Milan crowd.
No, they don't. But Bastoni is a player that Liverpool have been linked with a few times, but nothing's
Spurs.
ever.
Tried to sign him. Conte was there, but they wouldn't pay the money as well, I believe.
I think they're looking for what 70, 80, 90 million euro. So it won't come cheap, but he's young for a centre back too. He's 26, 27,
Yeah.
if even.
Barcelona seen as the favourites, and of course
For me,
Rafinha is the favourite to win the Ballon d'Or because Barcelona are favourites to win the Champions League. So it pretty much points to the Champions League winning team will have the Ballon d'Or winner.
so if
Who are we
Arsenal,
looking at? Are we looking at Martinez, Declan Rice maybe after his unbelievable quarter-final tie, Rafinha, and Dembele?
nah, if Declan Rice wins a Ballon d'Or, I throw up. No, Can none of these teams win the Champions League and then Salah wins the Ballon d'Or?
I think the Ballon d'Or is a very strange way
It's
it's
a
done.
pop.
But
It's a popularity.
I
It's a
suppose,
popularity contest too.
well, that is it. But I suppose the only way to separate it, Inter Milan's going to win their league, Barcelona's going to win their league, PSG's going to win their league, and I know Arsenal haven't won theirs. But if it had been Liverpool in there, they all have done something that the R has done. So it kind of only has to be decided via the Champions League. So I think that's
Yeah.
the only way of doing it. But has
Especially when
Declan Rice
there's
been better than Salah over the course of a season? Definitely not. But
Dembele, Rafinha and Dembele, you could argue because they have, but the thing with Dembele, yes, he's been good in the Champions League, but he's playing in a far weaker league.
yeah,
And I
and I
haven't
think
watched.
that the problem next year for Salah is he would have to win the Premier League and the Champions League to even have a chance at the Ballon d'Or because it's a World Cup year.
And because Egypt aren't going to win the World Cup early.
So
Are they even
I
on it?
think it's crucial that Liverpool were to go on. They would probably have to win a double or a treble next year for him to win it. So I think time is running out for Salah to win this Ballon d'Or.
The last Liverpool player they won a Ballon d'Or was Michael Owen. That's mental. Van Dijk should. I don't care what anyone says. Van Dijk should have won it that year.
Yeah. Owen, let's look ahead to the Premier League weekend. Of course, it's a bumper weekend, which is about the Irish League having a double match round on the Irish Premier Division.
What do you think, Derry will get on the night? I think we'll lose
Two
again.
double round. What's that? Sorry.
How do you think Derry will get on the night? I think they'll lose again.
The Galway's never a good and easy place to go. I think come Tuesday night, there's going to be a lot of judgment being casted after 11 games. I think they need to find a way of getting 4 points out of these two games. However they do it, but the atmosphere, I think, at the Brandywell after the draw of the game, there is starting to be a wee bit more unrest. So
the fans
I think the Sligo game is going to be crucial, and if they can go into the Sligo game with at least a draw, it will give them a wee bit of a confidence booster. But I think if they lose to Galway and don't beat Sligo, they're already out of the title race. If they're even on it now, they're going to be too far behind to make up any ground. So I believe I think Pats are playing Rovers tonight, so that'll be a good, interesting game. But crucial that Derry start making the Brandywell fortress now with that new stand.
I think if we go into these two games and only come out with nothing, I think he has to go. I'm sorry,
already after 11 games.
There's been no proof. I've watched every there's no we have no piss in the team. The players just don't seem to care. The only player that cares is Michael Duffy, it seems.
Would change the manager though, change that situation that they're on now?
Probably not.
You can't get Liam Boyce to do. He's not going to turn into a speed machine if a new manager comes on.
I suppose, but
I think the recruitment's all wrong. Now, if Tiernan Lynch had a hand in that recruitment, then of course his position should be looked at. But I do think it's too early.
You would think he does, because look at all the players, and they've all played in the Irish League.
Unless we get into a relegation battle, and that looks pretty unlikely because of how there's Sligo's had an up. In fairness to Sligo, they did have a strong second half of the season last year, but at the moment they're fine. I think that's the only way I wouldn't see out the season, as if they ended up in a relegation battle. I think if they're mid-table, they'll kick the can down the road and maybe look at it again at the end of the season. But it's definitely not the start that people had hoped for. There was some cautious optimism from fans before this. I have to say, I said this on the podcast at the end of last season and on the City podcast again, the City View podcast when I was on after I think it was the Sligo away one.
Yeah,
I didn't see what some others were seeing. And again, if you're not familiar with that podcast, do check it out. If you're a Derry City follower, the City View podcast, it's available on all audio platforms.
You probably would. The way I look at it, then, if he was to go, who do you go for then? But
this is it. I think the whole structure of the club, whilst it has improved slightly, it needs to get better. We're not identifying the right profile of player. We're paying over the odds in terms of wages for what we're getting on the pitch.
We don't even have.
I think the issue is Derry are looking for shortcuts to success, and it's very difficult to do that.
We don't even have an academy.
No, and there's less and less academy players getting an opportunity, which Derry have been famous for in the past, that they're not really getting these opportunities. And you look at Pats, like they're producing quite a lot of good players down there. So and they're getting opportunities. They show that. Patton for me hasn't had much of an opportunity, and the game he did play, I know he missed a couple of chances. He looked a lot more livelier.
I don't know what
than Liam Boyce.
I don't know what he was doing last week. He didn't start Don Thomas after coming off the bench and playing well. Like I don't get it. Who starts up front tonight?
Almost 2-0 did it. Owen, let's focus on us. Who do you think? I don't know what way he'll go about it. They have to change up the team. He's got he's got 2 games in quick succession. Although they've got a 24-hour extra rest because the game has been moved to the Tuesday. Why that's happening, I do not know. There was a bank holiday on Monday. People were off work. Why move it to a Tuesday night? It's not being scheduled on TV as far as I know. So why they've moved that, I do not know. That just makes it a lot more difficult for people to get to a game on Tuesday night because I think it's a 48 kickoff, and everyone will be back to work on the Wednesday.
The club's a mess, isn't it?
Yeah, and then it doesn't help Sligo out. And I know it is one of the shorter journeys for Sligo, but they're not going to get back. They Sligo after 12 o'clock at night, and they all have work on a Wednesday. So it just would have made much more sense for the game to be on the Monday. With the 2 games in quick succession, I would imagine some sort of rotation. I don't think Derry scored a goal. I don't think Derry scored a goal in Galway last year.
No,
2-0 draws. And of course they were beaten at home, but 1-0, and they beat them in the second game 2-0. So they only scored 2 goals in the 4 games against Galway last year. So it shows you that it's going to be difficult to score against this team. So I think they would settle for a draw now and beat Sligo on Tuesday. I think 4 points would be a good return.
Be interesting to see what happens, but we'll be watching that tonight.
Yeah, let's move on to the Premier League predictions for the weekend, Owen. The battle of the data teams, the data recruitment teams, Brentford against Brighton, 2 impressive models. There's a wee bit of needle between the owners, of course, because they worked together in the past. And these are generally, we'll remember, decent games when Brentford play Brighton. So how do you see this one going? Of course, Brighton had a brilliant run of form, but that has tailed off in recent weeks. It looks like it's going to be difficult to get into Europe now. Brentford, of course, as well. You'd say at the moment, both these teams have very outside chances. They're going to have to go on a great run to get themselves into the conversation. But an exciting game, nonetheless.
And as you say, Brighton's form have sort of tailed off in the last few weeks. I think they lost to Palace, wasn't it? Was it last week or the week before?
Yeah.
Who did they play last week?
I think they lost to Palace 2-1, wasn't it?
No, Palace got beat 5-2 last week by Man City. I can't mind who Brighton played last week.
Drew Leicester to each.
That's what it was, and that's not good. I'm gonna go for a 2-1 Brentford 1.
I'm gonna go the same 2-1 Brentford. Crystal Palace, who were on a great run as well, have been humbled in the last couple of games, conceding 5 against Man City and conceding 5 against Newcastle. Do you think Palace have 1 eye on that semi-final against Villa at the moment? Do you think is that maybe disturbing their league form?
But that did you see that penalty that Eze took?
Yeah,
probably one of the worst penalties I've seen. But then Bournemouth, their form hasn't been great either. So this could be. They were one of the teams that everyone thought would have got Conference League. But
was Carragher watching this podcast? Do you think his wee piece on Bournemouth and Monday Night Football? Kenneth says what I says about Areola that it would worry me if he was the next Spurs manager because Bournemouth. I said this during their great run of form. Actually, the one thing that would concern me is their injury record this season, and they've been fortunate enough that it's been the players that maybe aren't guaranteed starters. But possibly Evan Nielsen being the most significant one that they've had. But Semenyo, Kluivert, and who's the other player that plays? Kluivert, Semenyo, and who's the RB lad plays in the wing?
Oh, Katara.
Katara. They've kind of been fit, so they've had that power up front, and they've got some really good players. But I says this during a good form that it would concern me if he was going to a club that's usually playing 3 times a week, how he would cope with that. And Bournemouth's form in the second half of the season, or the final third of the season here, is really flagging. And I think Carragher was right in what he says on Monday Night Football that teams, owners and chairmen will look at that and be concerned about that. Will Areola be able to cope with the demands of 3 games a week?
It will be well. he mightn't have 3 games a week if he does go to Spurs, depending on how. Depending.
The issue would be that you would expect it in the second season.
I suppose. Well, if he's.
It's never been easier to go into Europe now. Look, there could be as
No.
much as 10 teams in the Premier League in Europe next year.
That's mad. Isn't it? Do you think he's better off staying at Bournemouth for another year?
I definitely think he should give Bournemouth give him his opportunity. I think he should stay at Bournemouth for at least another year, and then see if he can adapt his approach a little bit.
But then you would think Bournemouth are going to lose Kirkes because he's going to go.
Well, I think the issue and whilst they protected themselves with these release clauses, it does leave them open to losing players. They do get good fees for them. Howson 50, Kirkes 50, could go for 100 million. Great fees, but the problem with the release clause in terms of a fan's point of view is it leaves you wide open to the player saying, "Well, they've met the clause, I want to go," and you can't really do anything about it.
Well, I think it's nailed on. I'm not getting too ahead of it, but I think it's nailed on. Kirkes leaves. I think he's coming. Well, I think he's going to Liverpool. I generally do. And Howson,
he's pretty nailed on, doesn't it?
Howson's wanted by Liverpool and Spurs, Newcastle, Chelsea. So
Real Madrid are looking at him as well. There's a lot of teams interested in him. And it's funny, like, I mean, they bought him from Juventus last year for 8 million, and nobody knew anything about him, but he looks very impressive.
I know Juventus have Lloyd Kelly, which is weird. But for this game, I'm going to go for a 2-0 Bournemouth one.
Yeah, I'm going to go for a 2-1 Bournemouth one. Everton, Man City is probably the most significant 3 o'clock game in terms of teams fighting for stuff. Man City, of course, trying to get into the top 5. Top 5 is guaranteed Champions League football this season.
So does that happen every year?
6 English teams in the Champions League. If United or Spurs won the Champions League, there'll be 6 English clubs in the Champions League. The first time ever that would happen.
Does top 5 happen every year now, or does it just change season on season?
No, change season on season. So it'll be down to how the English teams perform in Europe next year. I would suggest that it'll be harder next year because if they have 6 English clubs in the Champions League, more competitive games, so there's not guarantees they're going to pick up as many results.
Yep. No, this game, Man City have picked up a bit of form. Everton are going away to Goodison is never easy. I'm going to go 1-1.
Yeah, I'm going to go the same 1-1 draw. West Ham take on Southampton, who are only really fighting to be the worst ever Premier League team. West Ham haven't really kicked on. West Ham haven't really kicked on from Potter's appointment. Yes, there's been some decent results. They should have
got something last week against us.
Yeah. Overall, I seen a West Ham fan say that you can't really blame Potter. They've made a mess in the recruitment. The squad's unbalanced, and it needs a lot of work in the summer. West Ham are another one of these clubs that tend to really, when they go on, they buy players at big prices. It tends to go wrong.
Because I think at the start of the season, I had them challenging for Europe. Which shows you sort of buy into the hype of the. Although you had Brentford relegated, so
I got that wrong.
I had Wolves relegated, which was nearly. But we'll look
I think
at
you
that.
have too much faith in some of these teams that come up because it looks like it's going to be a massive points difference between 17th and 18th.
I actually think I had Southampton to stay up, which is probably one of my worst predictions. We'll look at that. We'll look at that near the end. But no, West Ham. I think it's going to be an interesting summer for them because I think some of them players brought in by Lopetegui won't see next season. Like he doesn't seem to fancy. What do you call the Rodriguez, the midfielder? He doesn't seem to fancy him. Somerville doesn't seem to get a look on. Somerville was a player linked with Chelsea and Liverpool in the summer, so I'm glad that didn't come to nothing. Wan-Bissaka has been probably their best player in terms of the new signings. But is there anything to say about Southampton? They've been absolutely dreadful. Honestly.
Thanks for that comment there. Owen, prediction for this game?
I don't even care about this game to be honest. 2-0 West Ham.
Yeah, I'm going to go for a 2-1 West Ham one. 5:30. This is a game I think a lot of people will be looking forward to on Saturday. Villa against Newcastle, 2 unformed teams. Villa will be spirited after that comeback against PSG. Newcastle 6 wins on the bounce.
Is that a Højbjerg?
and goals for fun. I'm not sure. I don't think so. Of course,
What's up
anyhow,
with
they had pneumonia, so very
that?
rare, I think, for someone that has AIDS, they get it, but just a bad sickness, really. But hard game to call this because Villa, we know, we're strong at home.
Yeah.
Newcastle have a lot of talented players at the moment on form, and they're a very dangerous team on the break. So I think it'll still be a fascinating watch, to be honest. I think Newcastle won this game. They're in the Champions League next season.
I don't think there will be a winner though. I'm going to go 2-2.
Yeah, I'm going to go for the same 2-2 draw. Fulham take on Chelsea, and so we're going to Sunday now. There's 3 games at 2:00. Fulham against Chelsea, a West London derby. We haven't even mentioned Chelsea. A really poor result last night. They fell over the line, really. And there's even Chelsea fans now thinking they might not win this competition because they are going to play the winner of Betis and Fiorentina in the final, who are much better teams than some of the sides Chelsea have faced in this competition. And there seems to be a lot of unrest, Owen, from Maresca and the fans, kind of like what Ange and Spurs are going through it a wee bit. Like there seems to be that kind of divide in the fans and the manager. And Fulham, to be honest, you just do not know what you're going to get from one week to the next.
I've seen Chelsea fans saying if they won the Conference League, they won't even celebrate it because they're look at the not even the quality of team. Look at the financial difference. Like Chelsea have spent over $1 billion, and half of them teams in the Conference League barely spend anything. But as you say,
how embarrassing would it be if they didn't want it?
Like West Ham won it. Let's be serious here. West Ham won it. So if Chelsea don't want it, then if Betis or Fiorentina get the final, like I wouldn't be surprised if they beat Chelsea because like I didn't watch it.
One off Betis and Fiorentina won't make a final because they're playing each other.
Oh, they didn't know. See, I paid no attention to this competition whatsoever. But the only way I would watch the Conference League if Derry got on did something. But no, it's I don't know.
Derry can't get out of the bottom half of the table in the Irish division.
There's a disconnect, isn't there, between Maresca and the like you seen even at the game last week against Ipswich. There was a clip on Monday Night Football where Maresca was telling Sanchez to play it from the back, and he just booted it long.
There seems to be a lot of pundits now. It looks like there's going to be 3 from 5: Newcastle, Man City, Nottingham Forest, Chelsea, and Villa for those 2 final spots. Now it's looking more likely that Newcastle are going to be one of them. And people now are actually having Chelsea as the outsiders of all these teams. Do you think even if they won the Conference League and they didn't get into the Champions League, the way it's going with Maresca and the fans, that the plug could be pulled in the summer and it will be another change of manager for Chelsea?
I think so because no disrespect to the Conference League, but would a club like Chelsea put any stock on winning that? Like Spurs,
the only thing they'll be able to say really is we're the first team they won all 3 European trophies.
Like Spurs won that a few years ago, weren't they?
Got it out of it.
Would you have cared if Spurs won that realistically?
I probably would have, to be honest. I'm not going to lie because we haven't won anything for a long time, so I probably would have took it.
But
I think the West Ham winning it has kind of devalued it in terms of English teams. But
I think there should be a rule where English teams aren't allowed in it, unless
I think there's more to lose than gain being on it now, because if you don't want it, it's seen as a disaster. And if you do want it, then people don't really give you any credit for it. So it's kind of a lose-lose situation on it.
Did you see the thing Palmer put up on his Instagram of enjoyment or something? So he put up like a clip and then put enjoyment on it. So he doesn't seem to be happy and has form's tailed off. But as you say,
thanks through Marco Silva's head, because 1 week they're beating a good side like Liverpool, and then they're getting turned over away at Bournemouth. You could win a game for weeks.
We've said that
in the story of the season from 1 week to the next. There's no consistency.
We've said that all season with them. They beat United in the FA Cup, and then are they still in the FA Cup?
No, they got knocked out by Palace. I think it turned over 3-0 at home. So
that's
what I'm saying. And between the Liverpool game at home, which they won 3-2, they lost to Palace 3-0 at home in the FA Cup, and they've lost away to Bournemouth 1-0.
It's mad. And the mad thing is, I'm going to back them. They won this game. I'm going to say 2-1.
Chelsea's in such a bad way at the moment. It's hard to see past for them.
I'm going to say 2-1 Fulham.
Yeah, I'm going to go 3-1 Fulham. Ipswich versus Arsenal is the 2:00 live game on Sky. Of course, the permutations for Sunday are if Ipswich beat Arsenal, then Liverpool we'll know before kickoff at 4:30 they could win the league with a win at Leicester. Owen, what's your gut feeling? Are Liverpool going to be crowned champions at 6:30 on Sunday, or are they going to have to wait an hour week?
No, we're going to have to wait an hour week. I'm going to go $2 Arsenal. Although we do play Spurs next week, so there'll be something about that. Just they say to you, haha, we won the league beating Spurs. Well, it'll be interesting. That game will be interesting.
I actually think Spurs will want, maybe not want Arsenal to win, but I think a draw would let it run on Norwich. I don't think any team wants to give another team a yard of honour. So,
but then
I think Spurs next week. Wally, I think as a fan and as players, Spurs have to go there and try and get a result. I don't like this. Just let's roll over. And if I see Spurs fans celebrating Liverpool goals, I mean that'll be even more embarrassing than the Man City thing last year.
Surely they won't, because surely they know no matter what happens, Liverpool have the league won.
Well, that's it, but it still shouldn't be a party atmosphere in the way end. If Liverpool are crowned champions, it should be disappointment that we've lost in our game, and that's where I cannot stand for.
Are you sort of hoping that Ipswich won and we won, so there's nothing really riding on the game next week?
No, but that's not. I don't really want to be clapping Liverpool onto the pitch either. Do you know what I mean? I don't think I've ever witnessed that as a Spurs fan.
Well, you haven't.
Chat away, sir. We can put anything on there that you want. I don't really want to see Spurs clapping an team out, regardless of who they are. Whether it's Leicester, the year we didn't play them at the end, or Liverpool. It's nothing to do with the club itself. It's just that I wouldn't want to do it.
No, I mind the year we had.
I think that'll break Arsenal fans, to be honest, because I think by the time it's nailed on. I think by the time they meet it, it's gonna be done and dusted. So they're gonna have to do it.
Because I think your man Trips. He was on going, no guard of honor when we drew, and then Van Dijk scored and he was nearly crying.
I think Liverpool, instead of waiting until the last game, should just left it against Arsenal in front of them.
Oh, that would be sweet. That would be sweet.
Sure, you could do the parade at the end of the season now, but I think you have the opportunity. It's the second last home game, and you're going to be Arsenal give you a guard of honor. Just left it against, but I think there might be some rule that it has to be the last home game.
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
That's what I was thinking. I think it's like Premier League rules, but it would just be madness if that game got rearranged to the last game of the season.
I think if West Ham beat Southampton and Ipswich lose and Wolves get a result at Old Trafford, I think the relegation's all but over. Leicester as well are likely to be relegated before they kick off against Liverpool. So I think a lot of stuff's going to be wrapped up this week. Or next week, and it'll really only be those fight for the European spot. So, Owen, are Ipswich going to face the drop this weekend?
You would think so. I'm going to go 2-0 Arsenal.
Yeah, I'm going to go 3-0 Arsenal. Man United against Wolves. Wolves will see this as an opportunity. They guarantee survival. United, have had 120 minutes last night. Well, they're really have the only player in the league. And look, again, I don't agree with this, but I think evidence of last week tells you that United aren't that bothered about the league because they didn't put much of a performance on at Newcastle. Wolves kind of seen the same when they played Spurs. Spurs didn't look interested. So I think Wolves have had United and Spurs at great times where their focus is elsewhere. And it's definitely worked against Leicester and Ipswich. So I have a feeling for Wolves to go to Old Trafford and get a result.
I'll go 2-1 Wolves.
I'm going to go 3-2 Wolves.
3-2.
Then we've got Leicester against Liverpool at 4:30 on Sunday. Of course, we spoke about it just a minute ago. Liverpool could be kicking off this game knowing they will be crowned champions by the end of it.
What happens if it's a draw between them? Do we still have to wait?
That would still be go to next week because they would be 15 points clear with 5 games to go. Even though they have a superior goal difference, mathematically. It wouldn't be over, but it's just winning, not off now at this stage, isn't it? Owen, would you like to see the champions done this weekend, or are you itching to be crowned champions, or do you care about another week, or how do you see it?
No, I don't care when it's done. I just want it. I just want it confirmed. I just want to be sitting at the last day of the season with tears in my eyes, having Van Dijk left that Premier League in front of finally. A fully crowded Anfield, so I don't mind when it's done. If it's done this weekend, I'll be celebrating. But until we left it, even though we'll be crowned champions, until we loved it, it doesn't feel like it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, they've updated the championship table here, and it looks like they made a mistake at the start. Plymouth and Cardiff are actually at the bottom.
I was going to
And
say,
Luton are
I don't
below
feel.
Derby. And it was Derby that were ahead of Luton, but Luton have now they're 1-0 up as we approach half time here, and they're now level on points with each other. So very significant that game now in the second half. Owen, we've kind of says that we fancy Arsenal, so Liverpool will have to win another week. But what's your score prediction for this game?
3-0 Liverpool.
I'm going to go 4-0 Liverpool because I think Leicester have checked out completely. And then a very interesting game on Monday Night Football: Spurs taking on Nottingham Forest. It'll be interesting to see how the games go over the weekend because Forest could go into this with real pressure on them. Do you sense that, Owen, that they are starting to feel the pressure of getting over the line for this Champions League? Of course, they've got a big FA Cup game coming up as well next week against Man City, which means they could possibly still win a trophy as well. So it's all they play for Nottingham Forest. Spurs, I think probably you won't see the Spurs resilience that we've seen on Thursday night, but they are at home, and the fans will definitely make a lot of noise if they're lying down. So I'm actually struggling to call this one. I think Forest at the moment are definitely conceding a lot more goals than they were at the start of the season, and it wouldn't shock me if there was a Spurs cut a result here.
No, I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw.
1-1. I'm going to go with Spurs actually. 2-1 Spurs.
Young Forest. So who do you think is going to get the top 5?
Newcastle 3rd, City 4th, Villa 5th.
Nah, that's the way I see it too. I think
Owen,
Forest will have to settle for Europa League, it seems.
Oh, big chance for Derby, just wide there. Owen, it's been great having you on. Really good show on Good Friday as well. Make sure to enjoy the rest of your Easter weekend. Enjoy all the football that's on.
You never know when I'm next on. Like I was sitting here as a fan of the Premier League champions.
That's it. I think that time is approaching, so you'll not have to do it too much longer. But if you're new around here, make sure to like the video and subscribe for more content. We'll be back on Tuesday to discuss all the fallout from the Easter weekend of football. Just personally, enjoy the weekend. A lot of bank holidays, a lot of people will be off work. So enjoy the Easter weekend. Hopefully the weather picks up. I think the weather will pick up on Sunday. So it might be a good one. Owen, thanks again. Enjoy your weekend, and we'll see you very soon.
Cheers, lad.